Hey, everybody. James Donaldson spent 14 years in the NBA playing against some of the biggest names in the world, guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Moses Malone. At 7 feet 2 inches tall, he was a big man on a big stage, and basketball served him well. But those battles on the court paled in comparison to the biggest challenge of his life, when in 2015, a major heart condition found him fighting for his life. After months in the hospital and a long recovery, he lost his business, his family, and he was on the brink of suicide. James found his way out of that dark place. And since that time, he has been talking about the need for mental health for men, women, and for kids. This conversation is not just about basketball, but about identity, vulnerability, and the reminder that sometimes real strength comes from asking others for help. This conversation is real and raw and important for all of us as we sit down with James Donaldson. Hey, a quick message, folks, before we get started. I've been listening to podcasts for years. I've listened to thousands of them, and many times I hear the host ask listeners to subscribe to the show or to provide a rating. Now, as a host myself, I know why. The subscription numbers and the ratings help the show to grow, exposing Pay Your Dues to more people and helping to bring in high quality guests. If you like Pay Your Dues, I ask that you follow the show, perhaps provide a rating, and know that we appreciate your support. Now, let's get to it with our next guest. Thanks for being here. I had emailed this to you, but we'd met before many years ago, and I want to show this photo. So I'm holding this up for the people on video. This was this is like 40 plus years ago. It's a newspaper article from the Edom Cloud Courier Herald. That's you and me. I'm like a 12-year-old at a basketball camp. And
Yes.
and you came to the camp, and I was lucky enough. I raised my hand, and you're looking for a volunteer, and that photo then ended up in the paper, and
Yes.
I treasured this. I still have this,
Yes.
this thing.
I remember when you sent it to me, I said, wow, that takes me back a ways, but great,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, and this is I think I was reading the article that was written about you coming out to that camp. A couple of thoughts. One was, this is a small town like Enumclaw, Buckley area where I'm from. That's rural. It's more than
Yes.
an hour outside of Seattle.
Yeah.
And
Especially then.
And so to have a NBA player come out to your camp,
Yeah.
it was a big deal.
Yes.
It was
Yeah.
meaningful. Did you like doing those things?
I loved it. And I did a lot of those kind of things back then and all over the Seattle area. And matter of fact, I was scanning some letters into my computer the other day. When I played in Dallas, I used to visit a lot of middle schools and elementary schools.
Mm-hmm.
And, back then, 40 years ago, the teachers would have the whole class write to the guests and thank them for coming. And all these wonderful letters from kids in the middle schools and the elementary schools that are just treasures. Now you look back and say, wow, thank you for coming to my school. Thanks for telling me to stay off drugs, telling me to stay in school.
Yeah.
Those kind of, talks I had all the time. I did a tremendous amount of those kind of things. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah. And what it makes me think of? I had an author on here named John Finkel who wrote a book called Hoop Heist. It was all about, the Sonics leaving. And on that podcast, we talked about how there was a city council person at the time when the Sonics were leaving that said, that it had no community, benefit to having
That's
a team, which is completely wrong. And we all know that. We're experiencing it now with the Seahawks in the Super Bowl and what it does to a community. And it is, I think about all the kids that are not getting visited, right now by Sonic players and things like that. And it's unfortunate. I'm sure the Sonics are coming back, but I think it is important to have that connection with the community the community has with the pro team.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for kids like you to come up and tell me that I came to their school 40 years ago and they were, 10 years old, 12 years old. Now they're in their early 50s, mid 50s. And they remember, they remember the talk, they remember the impression I put on them. And it's just, I mean, that's what it was all about, trying to be impactful with a really nice positive message for the kids.
Yeah.
Hopefully the kids are getting some of that stuff still, but this is a whole different age now with social media and all the rest of that. That wasn't around then.
Yeah.
So yeah, different talks now going on.
Well, I know that, of course, you played for the Sonics for a number of years, and then you played for Dallas and a few other teams, and but you chose to come back to Seattle, and I think it's interesting. There's still such a basketball legacy in Seattle. You know, Jamal Crawford and a lot of these guys. What do you interact and maybe at events and here and there with some of those guys and that basketball brotherhood that Seattle is known for?
Not on that often of an occasion. That's Jamal and Sean Kemp, Peyton, they were a few years after me.
Sure.
So a little bit of a generational thing.
Mhm.
I'm more in line with, the championship team,
Uh-huh.
79. I joined the team in 1980. So, the Jack Sigmas, the Fred Browns, those kind of guys, Lenny Wilkins, who just passed back in November. Those are the guys I usually hang out with and see on occasion. Detlef Shrimp, who
Mhm.
was a teammate of mine in Dallas, but really made a great mark up here in Seattle. So those are the guys. It's funny, 5, 10 years can make a tremendous amount of difference in a basketball life,
Yeah.
generational almost.
Yeah. Well, I think
Yeah,
hopefully in the next, certainly in the next 5 years, there's a team back in Seattle, and
most.
hopefully you're there for that tip off of that first game, and they bring
Yeah,
all the Sonics back. I mean, that would be really cool.
that would be great. I saw an article in the paper yesterday, I think Seattle Times. Governor Bob Ferguson is arranging a meeting with NBA Commissioner Adam Silver
Hmm.
to talk about the possibility of having the Sonics come back. So hopefully that's going to be a fruitful, productive meeting and lay the groundwork for them to come back eventually soon.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's going to happen. Well, I definitely want to talk to you about basketball. I do want to talk to you about your your post basketball career, the book you wrote, the podcast you do, your vulnerability and talking about depression and facing
Yes.
that head on. I mean, it's so important. So, a number of things I want to cover with you on the basketball side. You were raised in essentially California, Sacramento. You ended up at Washington State University, where I went to school as well, and then played for the Sonics. Um, how much of you had a long NBA professional career? How much of your identity was tied up in being a basketball player? And was it hard for you to develop a new identity after basketball?
Well, interestingly enough, my identity never really was tied up in basketball. Basketball just happened to be one of the things that I did in life, and I tried to do it as best I could, as long as I could. So, of course, it doesn't hurt, I guess, being wrapped in a 7'2" frame
Mhm.
that I can't get away from basketball. So, people are always going to associate, even if I never played, they're
Yeah,
still going to think
they're
that I
going to
did
ask if
play.
you did. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm glad I'm wrapped up in this 7'2" frame, and I'm glad I had the career that I had. But I always had a lot of interest outside of basketball. Actually, Greg, I started basketball very, very late.
Mm.
My very first time picking up a basketball was as a junior in high school.
Wow.
And my basketball coach back in Sacramento, Luther Burbank High School, he knew that I knew nothing about basketball, even though I was like 6'9", 6'10" at the time. Uh, he said, "Hey, James, why don't you just practice with the team all through your junior year? They had a pretty good team, and they were going to be okay with or without me. So he said, why don't you just practice and start to learn the game of basketball? Get a feel for the ball and rebounding and blocking shots and the basic things of basketball." And I did that my whole junior year with the team,
Mhm.
practice with them every single day, never suited up for a game, never traveled to a game, never did anything other than just practice. And then as my senior year came about, I played my first official organized
Wow.
basketball game as a senior in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, so I came to it very late. So basketball was never really my identity. I had a lot of other things I wanted to do. I liked doing. A typical kid growing up in Sacramento, and with all the other kids. And we'd play on the playground, soccer, and kickball, and baseball, and, those kind of basic things. But basketball really came late, even though I was a really big kid who looked like I ought to be playing.
Hmm. And so,
Yeah.
you end up at WSU, and I mean, George Raveling, right? The coach
Yeah.
for you, like what a great guy to learn from. Did he take a chance on you then? Because you were so raw.
He did. He really did. They tell the story now because George also passed back
Yeah,
last summer.
yeah.
And on my podcast, I did a 4-part tribute
Mm,
to George Raveling, also a 4-part tribute to Lenny Wilkins,
mhm,
having a lot of the great players and the great coaches from back in the early to mid 70s at Washington State University. Mark Edwards, most notably, his assistant coach. And so, they tell the story that one of their scouts came down and saw me play a couple games in Sacramento. They were scouting other players as well, and came back and told George, "Hey, George, this is a 7-foot kid. He's really green, really raw, but he looks like he is coachable. He looks like he'll listen to instruction and follow out. And it might be worth taking, 7-footers don't just grow on trees. So,
mhm.
it might be
Yeah.
worth taking a flyer on him." And George did. And I got to Washington State December of 1975. And those first 2 years, I rarely, rarely ever played. I mean, I was a freshman and a sophomore, and I'd be one of those guys at the end of the bench that would come in, when you're 15 points up or 15 points down with 30 seconds to go in the game. George would throw me in there and say, "Okay, run up and down a couple of times." But I practiced every day with the team. I was in the weight room, getting bigger and stronger and more athletic. And that was my first 2 years at Washington State. By the time my junior year rolled around, I was a fully fledged, bona fide collegiate student athlete, ready to
Mhm,
go, and
mhm.
played from there on and into the NBA for a long career.
So when did it click to you that you could play in the NBA? Because I mean, in a matter of a few years, suddenly you're playing against
Yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Moses
Yeah.
Malone, and I mean, you got to be able to hold your own against those guys.
Yeah. Basketball, it didn't click that I could do this for a living probably until the end of my senior year at Washington State.
Mhm,
Um, I went into the university bound and determined to get my degree, which I did. It was in sociology, psychology, fully considering a career in teaching, having my classroom full of kids, and just kind of doing that kind of route, a teaching educational route. Basketball came around and changed all of that, especially when the first inquiries started coming in to George Raveling and his staff about me as a senior graduating, ready for the NBA draft. And I didn't know it at the time, but George Raveling and Lenny Wilkins were very, very good friends from childhood, almost
mm,
from their teen years playing basketball and baseball. And so I didn't know that, but I think George uh, convinced Lenny to say, "Hey, just like I did, take a flyer on James. James is going to be coachable. He's going to work hard. He's going to not give you any problems. He's going to be a good asset to your team." And this was 1979. The Sonics had just won the NBA World
right,
Championship.
right.
So there was really no room at the end, as they
Yeah.
say. I mean, they had their first two first round picks, James Bailey and Vinnie Johnson,
Mhm,
and I was a fourth round pick. So I elected to go overseas to Italy for my very first professional year, and good thing I did. I mean, I had to be talked into it because I really didn't want to go. At that point I said, "Wow, the NBA! I want to play NBA. Let me try that." And my agent representative talked me into saying, "Oh, James, why don't you go to Italy? You'll play all game over there. You'll get your double points, your double rebounds. You'll up and down the court. If you go to the Sonics, chances are you'll probably be cut and you'll bounce around the league for a couple of years and you'll be done."
mhm.
Okay. And so I'm so glad I listened to George Raveling as well, but listened to my agent at the time, who really gave me some good advice. And it turned out to be the best thing I could have done because after putting in a good year over in Italy, I came back and was able to try out for the Sonic team the next year, make the team, and that's where my NBA career began.
So with George Raveling, I mean, obviously he's written many books and he's so revered, and you have that one-on-one relationship with him. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming it was much more than basketball, that you had that unique opportunity to play for such a mentor. What how would you describe him to someone that's not really familiar with the impact he had on so many people?
Yeah, yeah. Well, he was a no nonsense kind of guy. I mean, a strong male role model, father figure to me and a lot of other athletes that came through WSU. I mean, here we are on the plains of the Palouse, and I'm from Sacramento, California,
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
the inner urban part of Sacramento, and go up to Palouse where it's totally different culture, totally different environment. I'm on a college campus. I see very few folks that look like me other than my teammates and the
Mhm.
football guys and
Yeah.
a spattering of students in the student body. And George was a lifesaver. He really was able to help the guys come in. And he was a master recruiter as well. Remember, he
Mhm.
brought in a lot of great talent from inner cities all over the country. Stuart House from Michigan and Don Collins from Ohio and Clarence Clark from Los Angeles. I mean, these guys came in from these big urban cities to Pullman, Washington,
Yeah.
and to have George there to assuage us and to assure us that everything's going to be fine. Hey, we're here for a purpose, and that's to put together the best basketball team that we can, to make you guys fine young men, to get out there in life and make something of yourselves. And George was so great with that, and I'm so, so thankful for it.
And the interesting thing is you essentially go from George Raveling to Lenny Wilkins,
Yes.
another we talk about great mentors. I mean, I'm assuming that was your experience, but what did you learn from Lenny in the time that you had with him?
I was with Lenny for 3 years with the Sonics. Lenny really taught me how to be a young professional. Here I am now. It's no longer just campus life and school and student body stuff and the roar of the college crowd. Now it's professional. Now it's your job, and you need to be prepared every single day. Even on those days you don't feel like getting out there. You've got a cold. You've got a bum knee. You've got all kind of things going on during 82 games of an NBA season. Lenny taught me how to be a professional, how to approach every game and give it my best, but how not to get too high after a win and not to get too low after a loss because there's going to be a lot of those in an NBA season. Uh, and so with that focus, he was kind of a milder, disciplined version of George Raveling.
Mhm.
George was out there and constantly barking at you and on you and driving you. Lenny didn't do that. Lenny expected you to know some things and expected some certain behaviors out of you. I don't think Lenny ever really had a true head case on his team. He just didn't recruit those kind of guys or
Mhm.
draft those kind of guys. And that's what made Lenny so successful. He brought in quality guys who listened, who bought into his vision, his strategy of how to make the team successful. And that's what made it so wonderful. So those 3 years, I mean, I went from just being a bench player to a role player to a starting player in 3 years, playing alongside, the big Winnebago wall, they called this back then. Remember that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Jack Stigma on
Yeah.
one side and Lonnie Shelton on the
Yeah.
other, and me in the middle. We were a big, big, powerful, physically imposing team with lightning quick guards out there.
Yeah.
Gus Williams
Sure.
and
It
Fred
was,
Brown coming off the bench,
yeah.
and just a great, great group of guys that to this day I'm still so close to. And they helped me to make Seattle home. I've
Yeah.
been in Seattle for 45 years now.
Yeah. Wow. So let's talk about, post basketball, because you're 14 years in the NBA, then you play overseas a number of years, and the time comes where, you're moving on from basketball and leading up to 2015 where things really changed for you. And that's the other part of this story we're going to talk about. But
Yeah.
what was life like, after the NBA leading up to 2015 for you? Because you were very active in the community and running your own business.
Yes, I was. Well, like we mentioned, basketball never really fully defined me. It was just one of the things I happened to be doing. It serious demand of my time and my attention and focus for 14 NBA years and 6 years overseas, but that's okay. I was able during the off season to develop some of my other interests, business, which I ran some business courses at WSU. I didn't know the first thing about it,
Mhm.
but I started getting interested in business. Especially, I have to let's see. After 1989 season, I had a ruptured patella tendon in my right knee, and we really thought the career was over. I mean, it's a real rare injury, very difficult to come back from.
Mhm.
And here I am, 30, 32 years old at the time, so I'm kind of getting a little bit long in the tooth anyway for an athlete. But after 6, 8, 9 months of going through physical therapy, 3 or 4 days a week, twice a day on many occasions, a light bulb kind of went off and said, wow, I mean, I'm learning so much about the human body, about rehabilitation, about how to put it back together and get yourself back out there again. I was able to get back on the court in about 6 months, which was a fast track because of all the therapy I had.
Mhm.
But I'm surrounded by these wonderful people, athletic trainers, nutritionalists, physical therapist assistants, uh, and we all just worked as a team. And I say often, like Humpty Dumpty, they put me back together again,
Yeah.
and I did a lot of the hard work too. But at that point, because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to bounce back, the doctors are very cautious and pessimistic, and like, wow, we never seen anything like this. People don't come back from this kind of injury. Um, so I wasn't sure either. But that's when I developed an interest in physical therapy
Mhm.
and to help other folks who had gone through similar things that I've gone through. And that's when we established the Donaldson Clinic in 1989 up here in Seattle as our first location.
Mhm.
And that ran all the way until 2018. And by then, I mean, this is 1989, so I'm still playing basketball.
Mhm.
I found a partner physical therapist who can actually provide the physical therapy services and help run the operations while I'm gone 9 months a year playing basketball. And so during the summer, I would come back home. I would go and take my prerequisites over at the cross-state rival UW.
Mhm.
So taking summer school classes, and again, all the chemistry and algebra, geometry, less courses I steered so far away from when
Yeah,
I was a
right.
student. Oh, I'm like, no way. But I took all those things and prepared myself to go to physical therapy school at some point. Just summertime, I could only take 2 or 3 classes at a time. Um, and so by the time I finally retired in 2000, the business was about 10, 11 years matured running. I'm helping out during the summertime, but I'm away and doing weekly phone calls and conference calls with the managers, basically, just to keep things going and knowing what's going on. And so that's how I got into the business. I took over fully after the 2000 season when I finally retired from
Mhm.
Lugo, Spain. I was playing in Spain that year. Came back, and so I had my transition in place. I had what I wanted to do as passionately as I approached basketball. I approached business the same way and got involved with the various chambers of commerce all over the various communities we were in, the Rotary clubs, all kind of, just really, really got involved with it and learned how to be a businessman, how to run a business. And it was probably the best education I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you ran those businesses, like you said, till 2018, but I think you had multiple locations of the physical therapy, um, offices, and life was cruising along for you, like it
Yeah.
should be, right? And for a guy that, you know, didn't drink, didn't do drugs, lived a healthy lifestyle, bam, 2015 happens, and you've been very open about it. We'll talk about it, but for those
Yeah.
that don't know that part of your story, I mean, things take a big turn there. Can you just describe and set up what happened at that point for you?
Yes, yes, and like you say, up until that point, life is great. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm in great shape, great health, mental health, financial health, physical health.
Mhm.
Still running on the streets of Seattle 3 or 4 days a week, 3 or 4 miles at a time with a couple of running partners. But then in 2015, January 3rd, 2015, I'm out trying to play around the golf with the guys, and I just noticed that I was not feeling good at all. My lower back was just killing me for whatever reason. Sweating profusely, and we haven't teed off yet.
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
sweating, I'm nauseous, and I told the guys, I said, "Hey, man, guys, I don't feel it today." I just seen my doctor for my annual physical 2 weeks before, so I passed everything with flying colors.
Mhm.
Uh, and so I told the guys, "Hey, I think I just need to go check with my doc and see what's going on." And I did. I left before we even teed off. Drove a short, 15, 20 minutes to the doctor's office. And I don't really remember the drive even,
Mm.
but I parked my car in the garage. I got to the doctor's office to the reception area and everything went blank.
Wow.
They tell me, I don't remember.
Mhm.
They tell me I just fell out right there in the reception area as soon as I came in the door. They did a quick diagnostic scan and determined it was my heart that was giving me problems. They threw me in the ambulance and straight into emergency open heart surgery that lasted 12 and a half hours.
Wow.
And it was a life saving emergency. If I would have fell out on the golf course, I wouldn't be here talking to you today.
Mhm.
So God was watching over me and somehow got me to that doctor's office, to the ambulance, to the surgical team, and they worked like crazy, put me in a medically induced coma for 2 weeks,
Wow.
just to keep my body cooled temperature wise, so the swelling of the brain wouldn't happen and the body could rest and not be jerking around all over the place.
Mhm.
Totally immobilized for 2 weeks, and brought me out of that. And I stayed in ICU for 3 months.
Mm.
So January, February, March, I'm in ICU at Swedish Hospital, 2015. And that I didn't realize it then. I mean, I was grateful to be alive, grateful to still be here. I didn't know how close I had
Yeah.
gotten to losing everything.
Yeah.
The doctor told me, it's like, "Hey, James, you flatlined at least a couple times during surgery." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, we had to bring you back." I was
Wow.
like, "Whoa." I mean,
That's as close as it gets. That's as
that's
close as it
just,
gets right
oh,
there.
whoa. Yeah, yeah. Even though, I mean, it's getting
Yeah.
me kind of emotional thinking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, you're right there.
But I didn't realize how that was going to be the beginning
Mm.
of a long downward slide
Mhm.
of me and my life that I just wasn't able to get in front of and to slow down. Um, 2015 was just the first surgery. It was for the ascending aorta, the upper part of the aorta.
Mhm.
Uh, 2016, they had to go in and do the descending aorta, the bottom part of the aorta, and repair that. They told me they couldn't do both the same time because there's no way I would have survived it. So they did what was necessary to get me through the critical part of it. They could wait a year and do the second part the next year, and they did. Again, a couple months in ICU. And slowly but surely, my life is starting to ebb. I mean, my activities in life are starting to ebb away from me. I'm no longer able to stay on top of things. I'm under heavy sedation a lot of the days because I'm in pain. They don't want me to be in pain. I'm on pain medications. The business, luckily, was being run by my managers, and they did a great job keeping things as long as they could keep them going. Um, we had come out of the Great Recession a few years earlier, and the business was still, surviving and paying off a lot of that debt that we picked up during the recession, 2008 or so. And the managers did what managers do. They managed. But an owner is the driver, is the vision, is the one that just keeps on charging ahead. And without that, the business started slowing down and drifting a little bit, needed more financial help and assistance. Banks still weren't in the business of helping out tremendously with small businesses. I became the bank and spent all of my NBA life savings, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars I had saved up, and threw it all into my business to keep it going as long as I could. We had 25, 30 employees. I just felt a tremendous obligation to every one of them to keep it going as long as I could. Always the optimist, thinking, oh, well, any day now we'll turn the corner. Any day things will get better. Any day a bank will lend me $500,000 and I'll be back on top of things. So those things started happening in 2016. I was married at the time. The woman that I was married to, she decided to pack up and move on and took her son with her, my stepson. So this was June 2016 after the school year was out. And she kind of waited until I was kind of semi back on my feet in a way, but not really totally. And that was a big, big blow to come home day after day to an empty house that used to be filled with, the laughter of a teenage kid and the great smells of cooking for lunch and dinner, and it was gone suddenly. And I went through that whole summer and into the fall, just spiraling deeper into this depression that I didn't really realize I was on, because it's so, so insidious. It just has a way of creeping up on you. And, but making it through 2016 was a real challenge. Now I'm on my own. My business is failing. I can't get enough money coming in. 2017, I'm still trying to gut it out, and it's just not happening. 2018, this was when our fellow Cougar Tyler Helinski, January 2018, an up and comer heir apparent to the quarterback position at Washington State football, took his life in January 2018. And I was at my lowest point there. I just a couple of weeks or a week before he took his life, I went to see my doctor, and for the first time, because I didn't know anything was happening. I didn't know what was going on. For the first time, I went to see my doctor and said, Doc, I'm having trouble sleeping. I can't sleep through the night anymore. I'm waking up at 2, 3 in the morning. I'm up the rest of the night. It's been going on for night after night after night. I thought he was just going to give me some simple sleeping pills and be done with it. But luckily, he took the time to ask some deep probing questions of what's going on with my life. And he said, wow, James, see, you've had these life-altering surgeries. Your wife walked out on you. You're financially distressed. Your business is distressed. You're thinking about ending your life. You're anxious. You got depression. We need to get you help. And he did. I'm so glad he took an extra 15, 20, 30 minutes with me to really probe inside what was going on. And it was more than just needing some sleeping medication to get to sleep. And he saw that. He said, James, we got to get you some help. So right away, he put me into some behavioral health counseling. I had somebody to talk to once or twice a week. He prescribed some prescription medication, anti-anxiety, anti-depression. And, that was the lowest point. And this is right when Tyler took his life.
Mm-hmm.
And it resonated with me so because, I envisioned myself. The articles would write these great stories about Tyler and how wonderful of a kid he was. They talk about the various buildings on the Pullman campus, Stevenson Hall and Gannon Goldsworthy, where I used to tread as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, wow. And it hit me at that point. Everyone is trying to tell Tyler's story. And I said, I want to tell my story.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of people who try to tell my story, but nobody's going to tell my story as good as I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my main catalyst, my main motivation for trying desperately to pull through this thing. It was another 12 months. The whole year of 2018 was nothing but just fronting and hard work and pushing myself not to give up.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, at the end of 2018, uh, that little light bulb went off. I believe God was talking to me
Mm-hmm.
and saying, well, I asked him, I said, God, why are you putting me through all this?
Yeah.
And he said, James, I'm letting you go through all this so that you'll see what other folks go through with mental health challenges. You didn't know anything about it before, but now you know.
Yeah.
And I want you to get out there and speak and talk
Mm-hmm.
and be vulnerable and be a big, larger than life figure, African American man who can speak to masses of people, kids, men, communities of color, everybody, and let them know that, hey, you were there, but you made it through. And was the beginning of, you see, my foundation work behind me, Your Gift of Life Foundation. That's how that started in February 2019. So that kind of covers all of that.
Yeah.
In the midst of that, I had 4 major surgeries, 2 for the heart, 1 for a arterial bypass, 1 for my right lung the diaphragm got paralyzed in 2020. 4 major surgeries in 5 years. Just you keep getting beat down. Every time you get up a little bit, you get beat down again. But I survived. And that's my message to everybody out there, that you can and will survive. You just cannot give up, and make sure you reach out for help.
And you wrote a book about it, celebrating your gift of life, which
Yeah,
coincides with your Gift of Life Foundation. The byline of the book is "From the Verge of Suicide to a Life of Purpose and Joy."
yeah,
There's a
yeah,
lot in there. I want to ask you about Tyler's death, because at the time it did spark something in you, but you had to heal first.
yeah.
But what about his death? Did you look at that and say, if that were me, you're seeing how people are missing him. You're
Mm,
seeing what it looks like after he's gone. Did you
yeah.
interpret that for yourself? Is that what helped, in a way, spark you towards getting better?
Very much so. Like I said, people were telling his story, and he's no longer here to tell his story. I got a chance to meet his parents. Wonderful, wonderful people, Kim and Mark Helinski. They started up a foundation for Tyler, and their whole life work since he passed is to go and speak to student athletes on college campuses
Mhm.
all over the country. They're doing tremendous work, and they're telling Tyler's story, but they still don't have any answers. Why?
Yeah.
Why did he? This young man with everything, the whole world in the palm of his hand, an NFL career ahead of him,
Mhm.
the fortunes that come with all of that. Uh, why? They don't know.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to be here to tell my story. Why? What I went through. What drove me to the verge of suicide. And then how I was able to slow that down, put the brakes on, finally reverse, and come back to a life of purpose and joy. Tyler doesn't have that opportunity, but I do. And hopefully thousands of folks who hear my message out there have that same opportunity to just slow it down, put the brakes, reverse, come back to your life of purpose and joy as well.
For people that don't quite understand the depth of that hopelessness, that's
Yeah.
really what it is, right? A loss of hope.
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
describe what that is? Because, some people think like, well, come on, it'll get better, put your chin up. But
Yeah.
when you're in it and you're feeling that hopelessness, what is that like? And how did you what were the first steps to get out of that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a big part of it is you start having the negative self talk go on. Why? Uh, I've lost everything. I'm nobody. Uh, why should I even go on? Tomorrow's not going to be any better. I mean, it's all negative stuff that you tell yourself. And, I had lost my purpose as well. No longer an athlete. I'm now no longer a business owner. I'm no longer a husband. Um, I lost my home that I lived in for 40 years to foreclosure. I'm no longer a homeowner.
Mhm.
What am I? And why does it matter? Nobody's going to miss me if I'm gone. Nobody cares if I'm gone. Nobody loves me. It's exactly what I told myself and what so many people in this situation tell themselves. But you do matter and things will get better. I know you don't see it at that point. I didn't see it either. 12 months is a long time to go through darkness and despair with no light at the end of that tunnel, but you got to keep on going. You can't stop. And I know it's hard. And there's no way to sugarcoat it. There's no way to make it easier. And everybody's going to have their individual journey. The best thing you can do, make sure your medical professional knows about it and you have 2 or 3 good friends around you, like I did,
And talk to
that you can
somebody.
call. Yes, that you can call at 2 in the morning when you cannot sleep,
Mhm.
when those thoughts start coming in that you'll be better off leaving this earth. You know, George Raveling and Lenny Wilkins were 2 of those people.
Mm,
They were like a pair of crutches on either side of me.
mm,
And I had 3 or 4 other guys in my life too. And I remember George telling me, it's like, James, I knew you since you were 16, 17 years old. You've worked so long and hard to make something for yourself. I'm not going to let you throw it away. I'm like, wow, that was powerful.
mhm.
And I got to a point where I didn't want to disappoint him. I wouldn't think about me. I didn't want to disappoint him. And that gave me some motivation,
Mm.
some drive to get to that next step where I can finally start thinking about me and say, okay, thanks, George. Thanks for that push. You're not going to let me throw it away. Now I'm not going to let me throw it away, but you need that little primer,
Yeah.
somebody in your life to tell you that you matter, that they care about you, and they're not going to let you throw it away.
Well, and you being so vulnerable is so valuable. And that emotion that you're feeling, James, is that the gratitude you're feeling for them? Is it still feeling some of that,
Well,
that despair? Because are you still thinking about those moments, or what is that?
no, I tell people, you know, the tears you see are tears of joy
Right.
that I'm still here,
Mhm.
gratitude that I'm
Yeah.
still here every single day. Every day since that darkness finally lifted at the end of 2018, I have been eternally grateful just to see another sunrise, to go out and walk with my little dog, to hear the kids play in the neighborhood, to listen to nature. I mean, every day is such a blessing.
Mhm.
But I would have missed all of that by throwing it away. I would have missed a lot of tremendous things that have happened since then, good and bad. Last year was filled with uh, memorial services and
Yeah.
funerals of half a dozen people that really, really mattered to me. George and Lenny being two of them. Gus Williams being another, Slick Watts being another. I mean, guys that we were just like family. I would have missed all of that, even though those are painful times, but we're here to celebrate their lives. And so tears are not a sign of weakness. They're really a sign of strength, um, and gratitude and joy that you're still here when you're going through what I went through.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, talking about it is so important, and what you do is so important. And compare that to how you were brought up. I mean, I know the depression wasn't really an issue. It sounds like when you were a player, it was the
No.
circumstances later. But while you were playing, while you were growing up,
Yeah.
what was what was your window into sports psychology or talking about your feelings at all?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was a typical jock, typical athlete growing up, where, especially in competitive sports like basketball and football, you just do not let your opponent see you have a weakness, that you have a vulnerability, whether it's physical or emotional or mental. You don't show it as a man, especially. And this is one of our biggest detriments as men. We learn as little boys to, don't cry, to get up and dust your knee off. You scraped it, dust it off, and get back in the game. Don't cry, don't complain. Well, I guess that's okay when you're a little kid, but that's not good when you get older, and especially for men who tend to be more of solitary creatures than women. We don't have a whole network and circle of friends to confide in, to cry on their shoulders, to open up and just be so vulnerable. Men don't typically do that. I've learned to do that, and I encourage other men to do that. But men typically don't have that. And we need to learn to have those kind of pieces in place, because life will be up and down. Life will be filled with joy and pain. So, uh, and so I was like everybody else, you bang yourself up out there playing and practicing. Just, tough it out, just throw some ice on it and get back out here. Nobody wants to hear you crying or whining or complaining. But I learned. I learned, I guess, in a real time life learning lesson that I had to go through. I don't know if I would have learned it otherwise. And maybe this is why so many men don't really learn it either until they really are faced to go through something like this. But men, don't wait until you have to go through something. Find yourself one or two good guy friends, okay? Uh, because guys need guys. I had women friends around me that were supportive as well, but guys, we're a little different. We need a game plan. We need some instruction. We need some push. My women friends were, reciting scripture to me or bringing over chocolate or hot herbal teas, and those things are fine, you know, but it's not going to really get me where I need to get to. And men understand that. We know how to push each other and be there for each other. And so, men, that's why I encourage you, make sure you have one or two good men friends in your life that you can call 2 or 3 in the morning, that you can tell him, even though you can't tell, your significant other, you can tell him that you're feeling vulnerable. You're feeling like the world might be better off without you. You got these mounting situations that are coming crashing down on you, and you need to figure something out. I mean, guys feel more comfortable talking to the guys about that than they do their own significant other.
And you were touching on the stigma of talking about mental health, about depression,
Yeah.
these real life issues that get swept under the rug. But that stigma is even more prominent in the Black community you talk about.
Mm,
I think you said 1%
absolutely.
of, what did I read? 1% of mental health professionals are of color. And that's something
Yes.
you've certainly in your foundation are trying to change. But That's a big thing too. Maybe it feels like it's changing, hopefully, but that's a
Yeah.
big thing in the Black community of something you don't talk about or haven't historically.
Yes, it really is. And not just the Black community, but almost all communities of color.
Mm,
Communities that have been marginalized throughout history, communities that have been oppressed, they are very, very reluctant to open up to the powers that be. You know, and the mental health professional, as you just cited, there might be 100,000 mental health professionals around the country. Less than 1% are African American. I mean, that's less than 1,000
yeah.
spread out through 50 states. Good luck with that. And of course, you know, like attracts like. And so when you go see a therapist for something real personal like this, a counselor, real personal, you want somebody that kind of you resonate with, that might kind of look like you, or at least understand your culture. LGBTQ community also has big issues with
Hmm.
mental health and trying to find help for them that understand the lifestyle. And so this is what I'm working on, and this is what I'm trying to set up now is a scholarship foundation for men of color going into the mental health professions. You know, it doesn't matter if you're black or you're brown or you're Asian or Native American, uh, but we need men because along with that, you know, 99.9% uh, mental health professionals being non-African American, also about 93% of them are women.
Hmm.
You know, men, we tend to have difficulty sitting down and opening up ourselves to a woman. And so we need more men in the profession. I would love to turn back the hands of time, you know, 20, 30 years ago and become a mental health professional myself and be able to talk to men and just I'm getting into the online coaching now of
Hmm.
talking to men and helping them as much as we can, just providing sources, or if nothing else, a listening ear. I've had guys call me from all around the country as they see my story, and most of them are former athletes, and they saw me play, and they're like, "Wow, James will understand what I'm going through." You know, and you find out these guys they haven't talked to their doctor, they haven't talked to their wife or their girlfriend, they haven't talked to anybody, but they want to talk to me.
Yeah.
And I am more than happy to pick up the phone and talk with them and share the time with them as we need to. So this is what that's all about.
And you also have spent significant time talking to kids, right?
Mm.
Talking to schools. And what is that experience like for you to take this message to kids?
Yeah, yeah. That's really my passion is working with our young people. You know, I traveled all over the state of Washington, going to schools, middle schools and high schools particularly, where an assembly will come together of 600 kids, and we are there talking for 45 minutes about the work that I'm doing. I present them with a lot of my story, of course, first of all. I got a nice little video that kind of details what I went through. They see me playing with the Sonics, and now all of a sudden I'm this basketball guy too, you know, and
Mhm.
larger than life. Here I am, 7 feet tall, and they're all about 4 feet, 3 or 4, you know.
Yeah.
So, but they love it, you know, because it humanizes me. That
Mhm.
hey, I'm not just a basketball star. I'm a real life person that has gone through some real difficult times. And just in case you go through these real difficult times, here are some things you can do. So I provide them a lot of resources, a lot of information, a lot of helpful advice on what to do if you're feeling like life might be better off without you, how to get a good friend around you. Some of the things we're talking about now, I share with these kids as well. And invariably, Greg, at the end of the presentation, you know, we have questions and answers, and that's great. But there's always 4 or 5 stragglers that kind of, you know, make their way up to me one at a time.
Right.
And they will tell me that they're suicidal right now,
Mm.
right now.
Mm.
They don't know how they're going to make it through the night. They don't want to go home, you know. So this is the challenge for our young people. I quickly point them out to the principal or to the school counselor, and please keep an eye on your kid. Go and talk to this kid. They need you right now because they won't go and talk with them. That's the thing about mental health challenges. I mean, on the outside, we all look perfectly fine, and nobody knows what's going on the inside. And nobody's going to know unless you let them know. See, that's the challenge,
Yes.
especially for men. Being vulnerable, letting people know that something on the inside isn't quite right, even though I look fine on the outside. Please, please let somebody know if you are going through a mental crisis.
And we talk about social media for kids, which is definitely a problem. And as a parent
Yeah.
of teenage daughters, I worry about that and try to really navigate that. And so I'm not trying to dismiss it for kids and it being a problem. I think it's a problem for adults too. The
Mhm.
social media and you see everyone's life looks perfect. You start
Yes.
comparing yourself to people. You start judging yourself as you
Yeah.
look at these things. And so I think that is a growing problem for adults too.
Yes, it really is. It's a huge problem for adults. We're getting a lot of misinformation and disinformation
Uh-huh.
from social media, AI generated messages
Right.
and videos now. Women, especially young women, tend to be negatively affected by social media much more than any other demographic because they are into the outer beauty and the perfection, the perfect life, the perfect hair, perfect lipstick, perfect makeup, and they don't realize that a lot of these other gals they see on the videos are made up
Yeah.
and going through the beauty cam filters and everything else. But our young girls, 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds are really impacted in a negative way by watching all this social media stuff. So our parents, I know it's hard to keep an eye on your kid every moment of the day, but at least put some parental controls on the phone or on social media app. The social media companies are being called before Congress now to try to do more.
Hmm.
But of course, they're in the business of attracting eyeballs. They don't want to cut that off if they don't have to. And they've seen and they've shown that it's very addictive, the algorithms that they use and these kind of things. So there's so much work to be done. This is a new territory you and I didn't have to deal with when we were kids,
Hmm.
but now we do, and our kids and our grandkids need to too.
And whether it's kids or adults, I think the key that we keep coming back to is talking to people, talking about your
Yes,
problems, finding it who that confidant is. And you clearly experienced this the way you describe it, but I have found that when you're vulnerable with people, people tend to be vulnerable to you. Like
yes,
when you tell someone like you do, then
yeah,
then they confide in you what's going on with them.
yeah, they
Have you
do.
found that?
Yes. Oh, it's so, so true. I was at church last Sunday, and after church, we had a big gathering, first Sunday luncheon downstairs. And it is amazing, because so many of the guys, especially African American guys, are, rough and tough and, they're going to do it their way. And then, I might share with them a little something that I've gone through or they heard that I went through. And all of a sudden they open up and they start talking about some challenges they've gone through. And you're not comparing back and forth, trying to one up each other. You're just laying it out there that, hey, life isn't always, you know, 100% at the top. You've got ups and downs and all kind of things everywhere. And so most folks in my church congregation know my story, and that's good. Um, but I also find that they probably won't talk and open up unless I talk and open up
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
And so we need to be the one to initiate that. And you'll get that conversation started.
And you've mentioned church there, and you mentioned that conversation, you had with God. How much of your faith helped you navigate through this? Was that something you leaned into?
Yeah, oh, very much so. I've always been a Christian man, man of faith. It's just how I grew up, even as a boy in Sacramento. Being taken to church every Sunday
Uh-huh.
and really getting involved with all of that, and continue it to this day. Every Sunday, I'm at church, just really enjoying the service, the word. Um, but yeah, I knew God was always there, even in the midst of the deepest and darkest times. I knew God. I just could feel His presence. I had questions for him. Why? Why are you putting me through this? Why are you letting me go through this? I found out later that He wanted me to experience what other people have gone through. Because before then, I had no idea about mental health. Like I said, I was just one of those guys that hated, tough it up, tough it out, shrug it off, don't worry about it, because that was me.
Mhm.
uh, and so I learned by going through it in real time, real life, and God was allowing me. He didn't make me go through this. He didn't put me through this. He allowed me to go through it, and I learned that lesson throughout. So God was always there. And the old saying is that God was hanging on to me.
Mhm.
He wasn't going to let me slip through His fingers. Because if I was trying to hang on to Him, I definitely would have let go at some point.
Mhm.
But he had me in His hands,
Yeah.
and I was in safe hands, even though I didn't know it until I finally started coming out and emerging from that darkness.
Well, you talking about it has certainly made a big difference in many lives and getting people to talk. I think the other thing people we can do, I think, instead of looking at our phones and looking inward so much, feels like if we look outward and we ask about someone that might be, that maybe we think they're having a problem, check in with people. Guys aren't always
Yes.
great about doing that either,
Yeah.
checking
No,
in, right? That's something I
that
think guys could do a lot more of.
that's right, that's right. No, we have to. I mean, and I tell folks too, I say, I'm much more of a phone guy than a texting guy.
Yeah.
You wanna get a hold of me, don't send me a text because 'cause I'm probably just gonna ignore it or it's gonna get buried in a bunch of other texts. Call me. I will always pick up the phone because I want to hear your voice. I want to hear the inflection in your voice. I want to sense what kind of day you're having. You can't get that through a text message, and so that's how I encourage people to contact and communicate with me. There was a young lady who texted or emailed me the other day, wanted to get together with me over lunch. She had heard my story at a Rotary group meeting. I speak at Rotary quite a
Mhm.
bit.
Mhm.
And I met her. I didn't know who she was, but she said, because at the end of my presentation, I said, "Hey, if you don't have anybody to talk to, call me.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll talk to you." And so she did. She followed up, emailed me. I got that. We went out to lunch, and her whole world is upside down. She's up here all by herself. Her family's down in Houston, Texas. She just recently lost her high-paying job. She's paying 3,000 a month for an apartment, 2,500 a month for a house in Houston.
Mhm.
And she's at her wits' end, and she said she's thinking about ending it all.
Mhm.
Wow, that that hit me, and I
Mhm.
said, "Hey, please don't. No, no, things will get better, and your life is so much more important and valuable. Don't think about taking it." And I've called her a couple times, and this is
Mhm.
just last week. I called her a couple times, texted her a couple times, and she assures me that she's working on it. She's getting through it. She's very appreciative of the fact that I'm checking in. And I said, "I'm checking in because I care about you. I'm checking in because I know what you're going through, and you'll make it through." So I do this for a lot of folks, and I'm more than happy to do it. So any of our listeners out there, same thing, got my website at the
Yeah.
back there, and
Yeah.
I'm sure Greg can share some email address with you, what have you. Don't hesitate, especially you guys. I'm hard on you guys
Mhm.
because I know how we are. You guys, pick up the phone.
And if I guess you've kind of answered this question for the person that's struggling right now,
Yeah.
other than reaching out to you, which is wonderful. I think there's a number you can call. Is it 988? Do I have that right?
Correct, correct. 988 is our new suicide prevention hotline
Okay.
number, and it is manned by a person, man or woman, not a chat GPT
Mhm.
or a bot or anything like that. This is an actual live person who will pick up the phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They picked up the phone from me several times in the midst of my crisis at 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and, able to talk me down, able to get some of that anxiety out of me, help me to get back to sleep, relax, that tomorrow we can start working on some other things. So 988 is our new suicide prevention hotline number, 3 numbers, and it's as simple as can be, and a real live person will talk to you. They will not neglect you. They'll talk to you and pick up the phone.
That's great to get that out there. Um, you had this, I don't know if it's 2 lives, but to the public, maybe it is. You had this NBA career, 14
Yeah,
years, another 20-year professional basketball career,
yeah,
playing against all the greats, right? You were coached by some of the greats. And then you had
yes,
this other life, this life in the last, 10 years or so of
yeah,
changing lives. What are you most proud of when you look back on
yeah,
all of
yeah,
that?
yeah. Well, I've done a lot of things in life. Being a college graduate was first and foremost
Mhm.
one of my first accomplishments. Being a professional athlete, being a small business owner, being a community leader, running for political office. But the work I'm doing now is by far the most gratifying and rewarding work that I've ever done. Because I get feedback from people that I've made a difference in their life. I see the work that I'm doing is making a tremendous difference. Some of these kids, even at schools, they have an email address. They can contact me. I have a secondary number on my phone. They can call.
Mm.
And I've followed up with them and talked to them, and their parents are so appreciative. James, we're just glad he has somebody to talk to, and he wants to talk to you. And so I know I'm making a difference in the lives of so many. I don't know how many people I might have affected. I don't know how many people I might have saved from taking their lives. It doesn't matter. If I just reach one today, I am this work. This is my whole next chapter, Greg. I
Yeah.
mean, from today until my final breath, I want to be that voice and that advocate for mental health awareness and suicide prevention for everybody.
I'm so glad you were sharing your story and now we were able to reconnect 40 years, after this
Yes,
photo.
yes, there we go.
I'll put in the show notes, but I want to make sure everyone knows about these resources. Your book, Celebrating Your Gift of Life, your foundation, which is Your Gift of Life. Yeah, what is
Yes,
it? Yourgiftoflife.org is the website there. And then your
right.
podcast, Standing Above the Crowd. I listened to a few of those episodes and they're great. You
Thank
carry on this conversation, you go much deeper into mental health and suggestions for people.
Yeah,
James, I think it's interesting that in 2015, it was your heart, that
yes,
caused all the problems for you, but it is your heart that is affecting
yeah,
so many people, and your
yeah.
willingness to be vulnerable and share your story is having an impact. And I thank you for doing that.
I really appreciate that, Greg. Yeah, I still get emotional telling my story. I still tear up at points, and I guess it just shows me how real everything was that I went through. It wasn't my imagination, and the doctors remind me even now of how close I was to, exiting this world on the operating table.
Mhm.
And I had no clue. I had no idea. I mean, I'm just trying to get back on my feet again. And so um, these tears, like I said, they're tears of joy and gratitude and happiness that I'm still here to do this podcast with you today. I mean, it's wonderful. And hopefully to reach thousands and thousands of people out there that listen to the podcast and can make a positive impact on them as well. This is what it's all about now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're grateful for you and for sharing your
Thank you.
story. So thanks for being here today, James.
Thank you. It's so good to see you. You're all grown up now. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Have a great day. We'll be in touch.
All right.
Okay.
You bet.